자, 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 기업가 정신에서 대한민국 경제 성장의 길을 찾다 세미나 시작입니다. 오늘 홀콤 교수는 제가 잠시 소개시켜드리겠습니다. 현재 플로리다 스테이트 유니버시티에 경제학과 교수로 계셨고요. 굉장히 오랜 기간 동안에 있는데 전공 분야는 공공선택 이론에 있어서 미국의 공공선택학 회장도 하고 전 세계 공공선택학 회장도 하신 이 분야를 아는 사람들은 다 아는 유명하신 분입니다. 그런데 문제는 이 경제학이라는 이 바닥이 좀 이래 일종의 주류경제학에서는 이런 것 공공선택학이 아직 주류경제학의 영역이 들어오지는 못했습니다. 재정학, public finance 이쪽의 역사는 전부 이제 사무엘슨 교수처럼 수학을 바탕으로 하는 이런 쪽으로 되어 있기 때문에 수학의 정치성을 가지고 있을지 모르지만 현실을 설명하는 이런 부분에서 굉장히 좀 동떨어진 이런 이론입니다. 공공선택론은 여러분 다 아시는 노벨 경제학자 학상을 받은 제임스 부캐넌 교수가 집대성인 것이고 우리 홀콤 교수도 아마 이런 부캐넌 교수 밑에서 학위를 하고 이렇기 때문에 그 맥을 지금 잇고 있는 그런 분입니다. 오늘 한국에서 이런 뜻깊은 자리를 가지게 됐는데요. 여러 가지 토픽이 있습니다. 이분이 워낙 많은 토픽을 가지고 글을 쓰시고 논문을 쓰시기 때문에 여러 가지 토픽이 있는데 저희는 오늘 딱 한 가지를 주문을 했습니다. 기업가 정신과 경제적 번영 이렇게 해가지고 이분이 책을 제가 볼 때는 한 6, 7년 전에 이 책을 썼습니다. Entrepreneurship and Economic Progress 이렇게 책을 썼는데 이 책을 또 우리 항수영 교수님이 지금 한글로 번역 거의 완성했습니다. 책을 여러분 다 아시겠지만 번역하는 게 얼마나 어렵습니까? 그런데 기꺼이 제가 이 책의 중요성을 알고 누구 번역해 줄 수 있는 분을 찾던 사이에 한 교수님께서 기꺼이 맡아주셔가지고 지금 드래프트가 다 나와 있는 상태입니다. 그래서 아마 한 다음 달이나 다다음 달 좀 지나면 한글로도 이분 책을 볼 수 있는 그런 기회가 올 것 같습니다. 자, 그러면 오늘 우리 랜더 홀콤 교수님의 지금 강의입니다. 강의 1시간 이내로 이렇게 듣고 그 다음에 번역을 하신 번역한다면 어찌 보면 저자보다 더 많이 알 수 있어요. 그게 번역의 묘미예요. 안 맞아요? 번역을 하게 되면 저자보다 더 많은 걸 알 수 있다고. 번역이 그만큼 힘들어요. 그래서 우리 번역해 주신 한 교수님께서 이런 기업가 정신에 대해서 한국에서 어떤 의미를 가지고 있냐 하는 것을 이야기해 주시고 저도 간단히 그 옆에서 곱사리로 한마디 거들도록 하겠습니다. 자, 그러면은 강의를 듣도록 하겠습니다.
To get here from my home in Florida to get here to Korea. Okay, so you're thinking, oh, I know. He just took the airlines. This doesn't seem to be working. Nobody's amazed that I did that. I told you that. You said, oh, you just took the airlines. Think about how remarkable it is that people can do that. And we just take it for granted. We make a reservation. Well, I want to travel from Korea to the United States to Korea, such and such a date. We make a reservation, and we just take it for granted that things work that way. And even if our flight is late, then we're mad, right? We're angry. Oh, what's wrong with this airline? When you think about the remarkable achievement that we can do that at all. And that's an example of, like I said on my first slide, that's an example of economic progress. Now, we tend to think about, as we think about the development of economies, we tend to think about economies in terms of growth. And when we think about growth, we think about income growth. But really, the driving force behind even that income growth is the economic progress, the thing that allows us. I mean, if I were to come over here 100 years ago, I would have had to have gone by boat. How many weeks would it have taken me to do that? And as I was arranging the trip, it was just so remarkable. I'd sit down at my computer and type in an email, and it's there. And if we were to do that 100 years ago, I would be writing a letter that would go onto a boat that several weeks later would arrive, and then the answer. I mean, it's just remarkable when you think about the economic progress that's occurred. And it's not only with airline travel. There's a whole host of advances that are the result of economic progress. I mean, I'm old enough. I remember the first time I saw a microwave oven. Amazing! Now, everybody has them. When I was a kid, I'm old enough that something like a cellular telephone was science fiction. And today we just take it for granted that you can talk to your phone and the phone will answer you. Ask your phone questions, and the phone, it's not somebody at the other end of the phone tells you the answer. I don't know, does anybody here have iPhone? No, we all have Samsung phones. So it's pretty remarkable when you think, just the flat screen televisions. There are example after example after example where when we think about the development of an economy, what we're thinking about is the economic progress that brings us new goods and services. So, why is it that we're better off today than we were in the past? And you look at our income growth, and it's been pretty remarkable. In the United States, over the 20th century, income was 7 times higher than at the end of the century than it was at the beginning. In Korea, it's even more remarkable. Your income, per capita income in South Korea today is 10 times higher than it was in 1960. So we have this remarkable growth in income. It looks like from this graph you guys are doing a little better than North Korea. But why is it that we had this remarkable income growth? And one of the messages I want to get across to you is that you couldn't have this growth in income without also having the economic progress that brings along the new goods and services. That if you go back to the beginning of the 20th century, people are traveling around in horses and wagons. At the end of the 20th century, you're going to want 7 times more, 10 times more horses? Or no, when you think about economic progress, the income growth that we had, partly it's that we have, we can buy more things. We have opportunity to get more things. But the big part of it is that we have the opportunity to get different things. So instead of traveling this way, we travel this way. Instead of taking the boat when I want to go from the United States to Korea, I take the airlines. Instead of writing a letter, I send an email. And you couldn't have had the kind of income growth that we have had without having the economic progress that's brought along the new goods and services that allow that income growth to take place. People are not going to want to eat 10 times as much food. People are not going to want to have 10 times as many horses. You go to the United States, Korea I'm sure also, and there are fewer horses now than there were 100 years ago. But there are a lot more cars. It's that economic progress that drives our well-being that makes us better off. So what causes that economic progress? Innovation and entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs think of new goods and services, better ways to produce the goods and services that we already have, more innovative production methods. And here I think that a distinction that Joseph Schumpeter made is useful. He talked about the difference between invention and innovation. And invention is coming up with the technologies, coming up with those new ideas. And we tend to think a lot, as economists, we tend to think a lot about the technological advances. We tend to talk a lot about research and development. But that research and development, the technological advances are only part of the story. Then we have to take those technological advances and turn them into goods and services that people actually want to consume. And so, here's Steve Jobs talking about, IBM was doing a lot more R&D than we were doing, but we were coming up with those innovative ideas that brought the new goods and services to individual consumers. So I just got my slides out of order here from see what's coming up next. So economic progress is pretty new in the history of the world. Right now, we just take it for granted. So if you don't think about it, you take this economic progress for granted. How many of you have cellular telephones? So you're so shy, you won't raise your hands. Everybody has one. Okay. I asked my students that. Everybody, they all have them. But 25 years ago, nobody would have had them. How many of you think that the phone that you're using today is the same one you'll be using 5 years from now? Yeah, I mean, the new phone's coming out. I'm going to upgrade my phone. We just take that idea of economic progress for granted, but it's something new in human history. That's only a few hundred years old, and it came in with the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution. It's hard to date exactly the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. If we were talking about a revolution like a war, we'd talk about the day the first shot was fired. Probably the Industrial Revolution dates back to around 1750 or so, sometime in the 1700s. And life in 1750 really wasn't that different from life in 1650, which wasn't that different from life in 1550, which wasn't that different from life in 550 AD. So, I mean, if you took somebody back from 500 AD, where the Roman Empire was at the peak of the world, and similar advances in civilization in China, you took somebody from 500 AD, and they took a really long nap and woke up in 1500 AD, the world wouldn't be that different to them. People would be consuming the same types of goods. They'd be producing them the same way. They'd be farming in their fields behind plows that are drawn by animals. They'd be sailing in ships with the sails. So, I mean, there were a little bit of change. But life in 1500 was not that different from life in 500 AD. And so it's only when the Industrial Revolution came along that anybody could recognize economic progress in their lifetimes. That I asked you earlier about, how many of you think you'll have the same phone now that you have, you'll have the phone you have now in 5 years? And you think, oh no, I'm going to upgrade, the new models come out and so forth. But before the Industrial Revolution, you might want to get new stuff if your old stuff wore out, but the goods and services that you would be consuming at the time of your death would be essentially the same as the goods and services when you were born. People would be producing things the same way. So we just take this economic progress for granted today, but it's something very new in human history. And what is it that produced this economic progress? I think there we go. What is it that produced this economic progress? It's capitalism. That and here, I mean, you look at the increase in world GDP over time, and what is it that caused this huge increase in economic output? It's capitalism. As I said, there wasn't much economic progress from 500 AD to 1500 AD, but people at 500 AD, at least if you look at the Roman Empire, ancient China, somewhat later civilizations in Peru and Central and South America, those people were advanced well beyond primitive existence, and yet it seems that that was about the limit of where they could get before the Industrial Revolution. And my conjecture on that is, if you look at the ancient Roman Empire, that allows people, just allows them the creativity to decide on their own the services they're going to produce, innovations that they can make, and so forth. So it's capitalism that led to this huge spike in world GDP. And profit is essential, excuse me, profit is essential to the way that a market economy works. That, first of all, profit is the lure for innovators. You know, that somebody like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, you know, they say, hey, we make this product, we bring this product to market, and I think we can make some money with this. So it's the lure to innovation, and it's also the sign that the innovations are adding to the wealth of the economy. That people take resources that are worth a certain amount, they combine them, they produce output, and if they can sell the output for more than what they paid for the inputs, they're adding value to the economy. So profit is both the lure that entices people to entrepreneurial activity, and it's an indicator of the value that's being added to the economy. And so Schumpeter says, without development, there's no profit. Without profit, no development. So I don't know how many of you have a background in academic economics, but here's a question for the economics students, maybe the economics professors who are in the audience. It's a multiple choice question. It's really easy because there's just two choices. So right away you have a 50-50 shot at it. So which of the following is true? Profit is a sign of inefficiency in the use of resources, or B, profit is necessary for the efficient use of resources. Now, if you've taken a little bit of economics, what we teach our students, and by we I really don't mean me, but what we teach our students is A. If we see profit in the economy, we say either that's a sign of monopoly power in the economy, that's inefficient, or it's a sign that markets are not in equilibrium, and that's inefficient. So really what our introductory students are learning in their economics courses is A. But if we go with Schumpeter, the answer is B. And the reason for that is that Schumpeter looks at the efficient use of the efficient allocation of resources differently from the way that economists tend to look at it. Academic economists tend to look at it. Academic economists tend to look at the efficiency of resources by thinking about, if we could rearrange the resources we have today, is there any way we could do it better? But Schumpeter is thinking that by constant innovation, that leads to economic development that makes us better off than we have been in the past. When we think about the efficient use of economic resources, I mean, ask yourself, why are we better off today than people were 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, or 20 years ago? And it's because of the new goods and services that we have, that we can consume, that weren't available to those people. Yes, our incomes are higher, but also we have all of these new goods and services that we can consume that weren't even available to people a few decades ago. And it's that innovation that increases our standard of living that produces the efficient allocation of resources. When you think about our well-being, you know, it's not because somehow we're rearranging things so that we're doing them a little better. I mean, that's good. But rather, it's that we're innovative, so we're producing new goods and services, and that's what is improving our economic well-being. That there's a tendency for economists to look at an economy in an equilibrium kind of framework and think, if we get to this equilibrium, that's the efficient allocation of resources, versus the way that Schumpeter was looking at things and thinking about our well-being not in terms of some efficient equilibrium, but in terms of economic progress that makes us better off year by year by year as that creative destruction takes place, so that old goods and services are replaced by new goods and services, and we end up being better off as a result. So, and I think economists in general are sometimes guilty of too much presenting economic analysis in an equilibrium framework, where we think, okay, here we have the efficient allocation of resources, taking care of that, rather than thinking about the continual process of development. That's what's really making us better off, is that continual process of development, not somehow rearranging things so they're a little bit more efficient today. This picture that I have here, this is the IBM 360 computer. IBM introduced their 360 computer in the 1960s, brought it to market, and it was a hugely popular computer that virtually took over the industry. About 80% of computers sold, by the time we get to 1970, 80% of computers sold were IBM 360s. And it was a lot bigger than this computer we're using right now. Not as powerful, but a lot bigger. It took up a whole room. And the innovation, the big innovation in the IBM 360 was its multitasking operating system. That before the IBM 360 computer, computers would run one program at a time. And so you had the computer there waiting, and you have to be of a certain vintage, I am, to remember computer cards and running programs by cards. I won't even explain all that to you. But essentially, what you do is you'd load a program into the computer, and then you'd run it. And then when that was done, you could load another program into the computer and run that, and so forth. And what IBM did with their 360 operating system is a multitasking operating system, so you could load a lot of programs into the computer, and instead of writing programs to run on the computer, programs were written to run on the operating system. Now, we just take that for granted today because, well, that's how this computer is working that we're using right now. The programs aren't written to run on the computer. They're written to run on the operating system, and the operating system allows multiple programs to run at the same time. You can switch back and forth between them and have background tasks and so forth. But this was something new and innovative in the 1960s that made the IBM 360 computer a leader in the industry. And at the time that that computer was being developed, the people at IBM internally were referring to the program, the IBM 360 program, they were calling it You Bet Your Company. And the reason they call it You Bet Your Company is they were spending so much money to develop the IBM 360 that they thought, if this doesn't work, the company is in serious financial difficulty. And now we take it for granted that we have these multitasking computers, but back then nobody had done it before. So this was an innovation that came to the marketplace. And so, and as I say, they had got huge market share in the United States and around the rest of the world. They had like about an 80% market share in computers. And people wanted the IBM 360 computer because it could do stuff that other computers wouldn't do. It was easier to use. You wrote the programs to run on the operating system rather than on the computer. And so IBM had huge market share. And one result of that was that the Justice Department in the United States brought a lawsuit against IBM for monopolizing the industry. Now, IBM was a hugely profitable company because everybody wanted to buy their computers. But if we go back to the question that I asked you in the last slide, is profit a sign of inefficiency or is it necessary for efficiency? Let's look at the profit of IBM back then in the 1960s. Is that a sign of inefficiency or efficiency? Well, there are two ways to look at it. One way to look at it, the static equilibrium way, is to say if this industry were more competitive, people would be selling, different companies would be selling computers for lower prices, and so consumers might be better off as a result. But what that view neglects to look at is who has the incentive to develop that computer in the first place. A second way to look at it is the profit that IBM got was the reward for taking the risk to develop something that nobody had developed before, and that profit was an indicator of the additional value that consumers got from using the IBM computer rather than using a competitor's computer. Right? They can either use a competitor's computer or they can pay money to IBM to use IBM's computer, and their profit was an indicator of the value that that computer added to the economy. So there's two ways to look at it, but the way I would look at it is that profit indicates the value that was added to the economy as a result of this innovation being introduced into the economy. Now, the computer industry is a kind of an interesting industry to follow. I think other industries are similar, but maybe the development is not so obvious as the computer industry because we all use computers. We know about computers. But here's our IBM 360 computer from the last slide. And what happened to IBM? What happened to the computer? What happened to the profits from that IBM computer? Well, other companies started introducing computers. Some of the computers they introduced were essentially functionally the same as the IBM computer. But there were other innovations that took place in the economy that undercut IBM's business. And one of them was the development of the mini computer. Now, I found when I talk to my students, they don't know anything about mini computers. And I'll tell you why. See, what happened was companies developed these mini computers, and this was the leading mini computer in the 1980s. This is a Digital Equipment Corporation computer, DEC, Digital Equipment Corporation, DEC. So DEC in the 1980s came out with the mini computer, and instead of taking up a whole room like the IBM 360, it's about the size of a refrigerator. And it didn't do everything that the mainframe computer did, but it did a lot of stuff the mainframe computer did, and it was a lot less expensive. And IBM was slow to adopt to this mini computer trend. And so their profits started falling, so they had to lower their prices to be competitive. And so what happens to that profit when new firms enter the industry and when firms have to keep their prices competitive, so they're lowering their prices to be competitive? The profit that goes to the firm, which is the reward for their innovation, as those prices come down, that profit goes to consumers. So it starts out, it's a reward to the producers. But then over time, as competitors come in, that profit more and more shifts over to consumers in what economists call consumer surplus. And so by the time we get to the 1980s, there's this big mini computer industry, and as I say, DEC, Digital Equipment Corporation, DEC was the big mini computer company. I told you, I mean, my students have never heard of DEC or don't know about mini computers. Why not? It's because when the PC was developed, as the power of PCs grew, people started substituting and using personal computers for mini computers. And so the same thing as just what DEC did to IBM, now personal computers did to the mini computer business. And DEC, as a company, DEC ended up being bought by Compaq, and Compaq was bought by Hewlett-Packard, and so that's what happened to DEC. And so what we see is this process of creative destruction. Computer industry is a great example of that, where new products come in, new innovations undercut the old innovations, and that economic progress takes place so that we are better and better and better off as time goes on. So if we think about the role of firms in this process, what do firms do in the economy? A lot of times when we talk to our students in economic classes, we talk about the role of the firm and the people who run firms. We talk about them as managers who allocate resources efficiently. And if you've taken some economics classes, you know, you've sat through classes where we talk about a production function, where the managers of firms buy inputs and combine them to produce output, and the role of the managers of the firm is to allocate resources efficiently. But if you step back and take a larger view of this economic progress and look at what managers of firms do, in order to be successful, they have to be entrepreneurial and bring new and improved products to market. And so a couple of examples. This is Henry Ford's assembly line back when the Ford Motor Company started making Model Ts on an assembly line. And this is the Apple II computer. I don't know, has anybody seen the Apple II computer? I remember when they came on the market myself. But this is an example of that entrepreneurial innovation that takes place. And in both cases, let's go back to Schumpeter's distinction of invention versus innovation. Henry Ford, Steve Jobs, these people were not the inventors. They were the innovators. And the inventors, they're the people who developed the new technology. People were using assembly lines before Henry Ford started making the Model T. They weren't using them to make automobiles. But Henry Ford saw this production process, and he said, you know, I think I can apply this to the manufacture of automobiles, and we can make automobiles better and cheaper. And it turned out that paid off. And the profit that the Ford Motor Company made, you know, that was an indicator of the value that they were producing for the economy. When Henry Ford started making automobiles, started making the Model T, he said his goal was to make an automobile that the people who are actually working to build could afford to buy. Because before the Model T, cars were really expensive. And so the people who were manufacturing, the people who were making them, they couldn't afford to buy a car. And Ford, you know, he wanted to make an automobile that was affordable enough that the people who were making them could actually afford to buy them. And he succeeded at that. Steve Jobs, he wasn't the inventor of any of the products that he brought out, but he was the innovator who brought those products to market. Some of you may know the windowing operating system with the windows and the mouse as a pointer and so forth, that was invented by Xerox. Xerox had a research and development laboratory, and they developed those ideas with the windows and the mouse as the pointing device. Xerox never made a profitable product that used that innovation. They were the inventor, but the innovators were Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. Those were the people who looked at the invention and said, you know, we can make a product out of this that people are willing to pay more to purchase than it costs to manufacture. And that's the entrepreneurial role of firms. But So we see, if we think about what firms do, what we ought to be thinking about if we're thinking about economic progress, if we're thinking about economic policy more generally, is we need to think about how we make firms more entrepreneurial, how we can create more entrepreneurs, better managers, that's good, but better entrepreneurs, a more entrepreneurial economy, that's what's essential for economic progress. Which of these phones is the better phone? Here I have this touchscreen phone, and here's the, probably seen the old flip phones with the keypads. Now, when Apple came out with the original iPhone in 2007, most of the industry observers at the time said, this is going to be a niche product. And the reason why is when people buy phones, they want to have the mechanical keypad. They want to have the mechanical keys that they can touch, and so the touch screen really makes this a niche product. Turns out those people were wrong. Right? Steve Jobs had an idea, and it turns out now, I don't know, can you even buy a phone that has the mechanical keys? I don't know, maybe. But so now just about every phone, you know, this is the way that phones work. So Steve Jobs, he said, I have a better idea for a phone. You know, rather than using up all this real estate on my phone here with the keypad and everything, I can make a touch screen, and you know, we can change, the screen can change to do different things, and so what a great innovation. So which phone is better? Well, it really depends on what consumers want. And what we see is people have different ideas on that, right? So now, looking back, we can see the innovation of the touchscreen phone when Steve Jobs came out with the iPhone. But at the time, there was no way to know. I mean, Steve Jobs seemed to have a pretty good idea. There was no way to know that this was a better way to make a phone than this. Because what does it depend on? It depends on what people want. If people want the mechanical keypads, this is the better phone. If people would rather have a big screen and do other stuff with their phones, then this is the better phone. And so ahead of time, nobody can know which is the better way, which is the better product. Right? So entrepreneurs are taking a chance. Entrepreneurs are thinking, I believe I have a better idea here, so I'm going to take a chance. But not only do they not know whether the product will be successful, they can't know. Why? Because they're doing something nobody has done before. Right? So when Steve Jobs comes out with the touchscreen phone, he's thinking, oh, I think people will like this better than the old style phones. But there's no way he could know because nobody had the chance to buy a phone like that before. Right? And so that's what entrepreneurs are doing, is they're taking a chance on something where you always have to have imperfect knowledge because you can never know. Could Henry Ford know that he could build automobiles on that assembly line and mass produce them so that the people who were making them could afford to buy them? Well, because no automobiles had ever been made at that low a price before, he had to guess. How many automobiles could I actually sell if I could lower the price enough so that the people who were making them could afford to buy them? He's taking a chance, and not only did he not know whether he would be successful, he could not know because he's doing something nobody ever did before. One way to look at the role of entrepreneurship is think about it as arbitrage. That essentially entrepreneurs are buying inputs, they're selling outputs, and they're thinking, I can sell the output for more than it costs me to buy the inputs. Okay, you know, let's take a simple example where I see that apples are being sold for. I'm not going to be very good at translating Korean prices here. So I think it's about, well, I'm going to use, let's say I find out apples are sold for 50 cents, however many one that is. 50 cents in one place, and they're selling for 75 cents in another. Wow, so I could buy them over here for 50 cents and sell them over there for 75 cents. That's a profit opportunity, right? I buy something and I sell it for more over here. And so essentially it's arbitrage. I'm buying low, selling high. Is there anything that could go wrong with my plan here? Well, actually a couple things. First of all, there's always production that's involved. Now with the apples, I'm just buying them over here, selling them over there, but I have to get them from one place to another. So maybe I need to rent a truck. That's going to cost me something. Maybe as I'm moving them, some of them will get spoiled. That's going to cost me something. And there's time that intervenes. That maybe by the time that I buy my apples and load them in the truck and get them over to the new location, maybe the price has fallen in the new location. So the way I presented it to you at first, it seems like a kind of a sure thing. But actually, in any case like that, what stands in the way of my profit is production and time. It's going to cost me something to get those apples from one location to another. And it's going to take some time, and who knows what will happen there. Let's say that I decide that I want to build an automobile. And I'm thinking that I'll bet consumers would love to have an automobile that's made out of stainless steel. I don't know, is the movie Back to the Future popular here in Korea? That features the DeLorean automobile, the stainless steel automobile. And I don't know if you know the story about the DeLorean, but John DeLorean was an entrepreneur who decided to make these stainless steel automobiles, the DeLoreans. And so, he's put together a factory and produced the automobiles. It turns out it wasn't profitable. It was a risk that didn't pay off. Right now, I think one of the more interesting, innovative things in the automobile industry is the Tesla. Do you all know about the Tesla, the electric cars? Do they have them in Korea? Well, yeah. In the United States, they're selling in the neighborhood of 50,000 cars a year. They're all electric cars. There's no gasoline engine. The motor is electric, and the only way to get it to run is you have to plug it in. So you plug it in and charge it, and but again, there's the issue of production and time. Think about another case of arbitrage. Some of you may know a little bit about financial arbitrage and arbitrage in exchange rates and stock markets. And in this case, what keeps exchange rates of currencies pretty close together is that there are arbitrageurs who are looking all the time at the exchange rates among various currencies, and when they get out of line, they buy the currencies in the cheap market and sell them in the expensive market. And so that's what we might think of as more pure arbitrage. But even there, to make a profit, they have to have computers. And it really helps to have really fast computers and good algorithms. They have to hire people. That's the production. And these arbitrage transactions take place in fractions of seconds, in milliseconds, that the computers are always scanning the markets, and they're seeing, oh, we could buy euros here and sell them over there and make a profit. Or, we could buy dollars and convert them into euros. And these transactions take place in fractions of a second, but there's still that time that elapses. So when we think about these entrepreneurial profits and what entrepreneurs are doing, what they're doing is they're buying stuff, inputs, and thinking, I can turn around and sell them for more than I paid for them in another market. And what always stands in the way of doing that is production and time. Now, where do these entrepreneurial profits come from? And mostly they come from earlier entrepreneurship. In an entrepreneurial economy, new opportunities for profit are being created all the time. And for example, one innovation that might be handy to use would be a wireless mouse. So, that way you don't have the cord on the back of your mouse and everything. It's a little easier to use the wireless mouse. Now, how is it that somebody could have the opportunity to make that innovation? And when you go back and you look, when the microprocessor was originally developed, Intel was the company that originally developed the microprocessor. And their idea of the microprocessor was it's a way to put a lot of transistors on one chip. They really didn't have weren't thinking at the time, if we did that, we could use that one chip as the brains for a computer. They just thought, here's a way to put a lot of transistors on a single chip and make a microprocessor. But then other people saw, hey, there's an entrepreneurial opportunity. We can take that chip and we can turn it into the brains of a computer and make a computer out of that. So the development of the microprocessor opened up an entrepreneurial opportunity that the original developers of the microprocessor really didn't foresee. They produced a product, but that opened up other entrepreneurial opportunities. And then from the PC, I feel a little bit nostalgic. This is an IBM PC, which is that was the first PC that I owned. I bought an IBM PC, which actually, see, I'm old enough, it was just remarkable to me because when I was in college, it was the IBM 360 was the big deal. So when I could actually buy a PC, this is amazing. I have a computer in my house. Now I have so many computers in my house, I need to throw some of them, the old computers and everything. But then after the computer was developed, as we talked about before, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, they said, hey, we could make this computer easier to use and more intuitive with a graphical user interface. So the development of the PC, the people who developed the PC really didn't envision this when they developed a PC, but other people came along and said, hey, here's an innovation. And then using the mouse on the computer, other people, that was an opportunity for the wireless mouse. So what we see is that entrepreneurship creates entrepreneurial opportunities. That in an entrepreneurial economy, one development creates opportunities for new entrepreneurial advancement, which creates opportunities for additional entrepreneurial advancement. So it's entrepreneurship that creates those entrepreneurial opportunities. So if we're thinking about economic policy, and you're thinking, for example, how do we keep the Korean economy moving ahead? The answer is you want an economy that is very favorable to entrepreneurship. And in order to be competitive, firms have to be entrepreneurial. So here, I don't know if you can tell what these pictures are, but here's an old abandoned factory versus a factory that's up and running. Good management helps companies to boost their profits. So if you can do things more efficiently, that's good. It helps companies to boost their profits. But entrepreneurship is essential to survival. If companies aren't entrepreneurial, they'll eventually go out of business. And this is, again, when I think about the way that we tend to teach our students in economics, we teach them about profit maximizing firms. We come up with conditions where we say, here's what firms do to maximize their profits. And then, okay, so they maximize their profits, and then what? No, that's the best they can do. That's what the textbook says. They're maximizing their profits. That's the best they can do. That's a management approach to thinking about firms. But if we're thinking about just even the survival of the firm, that firm always needs to be thinking, are there new ways we could present our products? Are there new innovations we could put in the products to make them more attractive to consumers? Are there better production methods that we could use to lower our costs of production? That's what keeps firms in business over the long term. So entrepreneurship is essential to the survival of firms. So if we're thinking about this in terms of economic policy, what do we need to do in our economy to have an entrepreneurial economy, a profitable entrepreneurial economy. And here, if we look at the economic institutions that lead to an entrepreneurial economy, that produce economic progress, there's a lot of economic research on this topic that shows what types of economic policies we should have in order to have an entrepreneurial economy that remains at the forefront of economic progress. And here are the major elements that we need to have in our economy. Well, what we want to do now is to take everything I've said up to this point, and let's think about it in terms of economic policy. Okay, so we want an entrepreneurial economy. We like economic progress. We want to have an entrepreneurial economy that's going to lead to economic progress. What do we need to do to accomplish that? And really, I think these first two are vitally important. You cannot have economic progress without them. First is rule of law. There's an objective set of laws. Everybody's treated the same under the law. And the reason that's important is because if some people are more privileged than others under the law, then it gives those entrepreneurial individuals an incentive to look for ways to gain legal privileges. Right? If people are entrepreneurial, you want them to be thinking, how can I bring innovative products to market so that consumers will be better off? Because when entrepreneurs are thinking about profitable products, that's just the other side of the coin from thinking, what can we do to make consumers better off? Right? Because there's no way firms can get people's money unless people voluntarily give it to them in the free market. Right? So you're always thinking, what can we do that consumers will like better than what we're doing right now? So with rule of law, that's what entrepreneurial individuals have the incentive to do. But if you have a legal system where some people are favored under the law, entrepreneurial individuals start looking around, and instead of thinking, how can I innovate for the good of consumers, they're thinking, how can I get legal privileges that will help me out and give me advantages over other people. So rule of law is vitally important to an entrepreneurial economy. And protection of property rights stands right there with it. That we have to give people the assurance, if you come up with an innovation that makes consumers better off, your property rights are protected, you get the rewards from that. As opposed to a system where profitable companies, they end up getting their products confiscated, maybe end up getting their property confiscated, their property is at risk. Protection of property rights is a key element to developing an entrepreneurial economy. Low taxes are important because taxes take away a part of the profitability of entrepreneurs. And it's a kind of an unfair sharing, because if the entrepreneur takes a gamble and loses, the government doesn't share in the losses. The company takes the losses. But if an entrepreneur takes a gamble and wins, then there's income taxes and the government takes a share of that. So the higher taxes are, the lower is the reward to entrepreneurship and innovation. So high taxes stand in the way of innovation. Low regulatory barriers are important. It seems like we keep thinking up new reasons to put regulatory barriers in the way of businesses, and a lot of times nominally for the interest of consumers, but what they do is stand in the way of innovation. One case of this right now in the United States, I actually think it's worldwide, I don't know how much it is in Korea, but do you have the ride-sharing service Uber? Do you know? No? I'll tell you a little bit about it, but if you don't have it in Korea, it maybe doesn't mean as much. But Uber is a company that started up this deal. It's a website, and you get an app on your phone. And so if you want to ride, you can take a taxi, But another alternative is there's an app on your phone, and there are private individuals with cars who sign up as Uber drivers who will come and pick you up and take you where you want to go. And it's usually cheaper than taking a taxi. And a lot of times it's more convenient. And one advantage of Uber is that all these drivers are linked into the website. So when somebody wants a ride, they can get a ride from somebody who's really nearby. Uber drivers will look and say, oh, well, here's a possible ride. So that's an example of a pretty innovative firm right now. However, the taxi companies don't like it. You can understand that, right? Because people are taking Uber instead of getting a taxi. And a lot of places, I don't know how it is in Korea, a lot of places around the world, they regulate the number of taxis. Of course, when you restrict the number of taxis, that's going to raise the price. And there are other barriers to being able to drive a taxi. So that's one example of a regulatory barrier. But there are examples after example after example of regulations that make it costly for firms to engage in business activity. And a lot of times these regulations require new firms to do stuff that existing firms are already doing. So there's no cost to the existing firms. The existing firms just create a barrier to entry to innovators. And a couple of others to mention, freedom to trade internationally. So if you have international markets opened up, both imports and exports, that creates a more competitive and a more entrepreneurial environment, and stable money. So you want to have a monetary policy so you don't have a huge amount of inflation. You have relatively stable prices. And so if we're thinking about developing an entrepreneurial economy, well, we want to give entrepreneurs the freedom to be entrepreneurial. Don't impose barriers on them, don't impose costs on them. Let them be entrepreneurial, and then give them the right to profit from their entrepreneurial innovations. And if we're thinking about government policy, governments are not very good at picking winning firms or directing economic activity. And if we had more time, we could talk about industrial policy in Korea. I mean, I think that's one of the issues, one of the economic issues that faces Korea today, is people look back and they say, look at how well our economy developed with this industrial policy. But I think in the long run, it's a losing policy because it tends to reinforce the status quo. And I think the reason it worked well initially in Korea was the government wasn't picking winners. The government was looking at firms that were already winning and helping them out. But then, when you get the big conglomerates, the chaebols that dominate economic policy, what it does is stand in the way of innovation. If you look at the United States economy, back in the 1960s. The big firms in the U.S., General Motors, IBM. If we'd set up an industrial policy to promote those firms, it would have stood in the way of the Microsofts, the Apples, the Googles. Right? So in Korea, if we're thinking about the Korean economic policy, we don't want to be thinking, what's going to keep Samsung successful? They have their own incentives to do so, and I don't have anything against the company. But if we're looking ahead, decades ahead, just like in the U.S. economy in the 60s, we wouldn't want to say, how do we keep IBM and General Motors? Entrepreneurs, the firms themselves that decide what policies they are going to follow. So that's what I have to say about entrepreneurship and economic progress.
자, 아까 말씀드렸듯이 헐근 교수의 Entrepreneurship and Economic Progress 책을 우리 한 교수님 번역을 했습니다. 그래서 어쩌면 가장 우리 용역까지이기 때문에 자발적으로 한 게 아니에요. 한 게 아니고 용역까지이기 때문에 공짜로 한 거 아니에요. 자, 그래서 안에 내용을 너무나 잘 아시기 때문에 그걸 토대로 해가지고 한국 정부에 주는 메시지 어떤 의미를 가지고 있느냐 하는 것을 5분 내지 한 맥시멈 10분, 그 다음에 제가 짧게 한 5분 이야기하도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 황수영 교수님 부탁드리겠습니다.
이 자리는 헐근 교수님이 주인공이기 때문에 전 별로 필요가 없을 거라고 생각을 했는데 이제 제가 그 책을 번역을 하고 있으니까 책 내용에 대해서 뭐 간단히 뭐 소개하는 그런 기회도 되겠다 싶어서 현 원장님의 뭐 요청을 제가 수락했습니다. 그래서 간단하게 토론문을 작성을 했는데 여기 뭐 내용은 제 생각이기도 하지만 또 홀콤 교수님의 생각입니다. 저는 사실 홀콤 교수님을 글을 굉장히 좋아해요. 그리고 또 홀콤 교수님의 글을 읽다 보면 거의 제가 반론을 제기할 수 있는 게 없어요. 홀콤 교수님의 생각이 제 생각이고 아마 그 정도입니다. 그래서 여기 이제 그 기업가 정신과 경제적 진보라는 이 책의 그 핵심 내용을 제가 몇 자 적어놨는데 우선 그 Entrepreneurship and Economic Progress라는 이 제목을 한번 보세요. 이거를 보면은 이 책이 어떤 식으로 쓰였을 거다 하는 것을 짐작할 수 있습니다. 그러니까 경제적 진보에 기업가 정신이 가장 중요하다. 뭐 이런 이야기입니다. 그래서 이 홀콤 교수님의 이 책은 경제적 진보에 관한 기업가 모형이다. 뭐 이렇게 요약을 할 수 있겠는데 물론 여기에는 크게 이제 두 가지 그 이스리얼 커즌의 그 생각하고 조지프 슈페트의 생각하고를 종합해가지고 참 절묘하게 종합을 잘했어요. 그 두 학자가 차이가 좀 있거든요. 근데 그거를 다 흡수를 해가지고 나름대로 홀콤 교수님이 이 경제적 진보의 기업가 모형이라는 것을 제시를 하신 것 같습니다. 근데 이제 여기서 주의할 것은 경제적 진보라는 것하고 경제 성장은 다르다. 아까 그 강연에서도 이야기를 하셨지만은 우리가 소득이 미국 같으면은 20세기 초반에 비해서 20세기 후반에 7배 늘었다. 그렇다 해가지고 먹는 거를 7배 더 많이 먹는 게 아니단 말이죠. 근데 이제 전통 그 경제학에서는 이 경제 성장에 관해서 이야기를 하다 보니까 거기 치중해가지고 자꾸 이야기를 하는데 중요한 거는 그런 그 동일한 재화나 서비스가 많이 생산되는 게 아니고 다른 종류의 재화가 생산되고 더 나은 질의 다른 종류의 재화가 생산되고 그런 또 재화도 더 값싼 방식으로 생산하고 하는 다른 말로 이제 이노베이션이죠. 이 이노베이션이 우리의 그 삶을 복지를 증대시킨다, 경제적 진보를 가져온다, 뭐 이런 내용입니다. 이거는 모르겠습니다. 제가 좀 읽은 게 부족해서 그런지 모르지만 이렇게 주장하는 분은 홀콤 교수님밖에 저는 못 봤어요. 그냥 경제 성장 얼마나 늘어났고 성장률이 얼마고 이런 식으로 이야기를 보통 해요. 전통 경제학 쪽에서는. 그래서 이 홀콤 교수님은 이 점을 비판을 하시는데 이제 당연히 이제 비판 대상이 이제 그 생산함수 접근법 그 데이비드 리카도의 그 생산함수 접근법이 이제 비판의 대상이 되는 거죠. 데이비드 리카도는 이제 생산량에 영향을 미치는 그 투입 요소로서 자본이라든지 노동이라든지 이런 걸 관련 짓습니다. 그죠? Q는 F, K, L 이런 식으로 표현을 하는데 이제 전통 그 주류 경제학자들은 이 생산량을 늘리기 위해서 자본을 늘려야 된다든지 노동을 늘려야 된다든지 거기다 또 이제 이 질적인 측면을 가미하기 위해서 무슨 이제 자본도 인적 자본으로 약간 변형시킨다든지 그다음 또 기술 혁신이라는 것을 설명하기 위해서 함수 F, 펑션 F를 이제 다르게 하는 것으로 표현을 한다든지 기술이 이제 다른 기술이 나타나면 이제 함수 F 자체가 달라지는 거죠. 이런 식으로 이 생산 함수 접근법 안에서만 자꾸 생각을 하는데 그게 잘못됐다. 그런 식으로 접근해서는 제대로 우리의 그 경제적 진보를 설명을 할 수 없다. 새로운 재화를 더 나은 재화를 만들고 그 다음에 동일한 재화라도 값싼 방식으로 생산하는 이런 그 인간의 복지를 가져오는 경제적 진보를 가져오는 그런 현상을 설명할 수 없다. 그러면 이러한 그 경제적 진보를 가져오는 건 뭐냐? 그게 바로 이제 기업가 정신이라는 겁니다. 그러면 기업가 정신은 또 뭐냐 한 것에 관해서 뭐 잘 설명을 하고 계시고 그 책 내용이 워낙 그 방대해가지고 온갖 이야기 뭐 여기 강의 안에서 이야기하신 거 외에도 온갖 이야기 다 하고 계십니다. 그건 뭐 책이 나오면 여러분이 읽어보시면은 정확한 내용은 아실 수 있겠고 그런 뭐 기업가 정신을 가져오기 위해서 어떻게 해야 되겠느냐. 이제 전통 주류 경제학에서는 경제 성장을 증대하기 위해서 아까 말씀드렸듯이 이 투입에 이 치중을 해가지고 뭐 증가시킨다든지 또는 아니면 뭐 기술 혁신을 가져온다든지 요거를 자꾸 생각하는데 방금 말씀드렸듯이 이 새로운 재화 또 새로운 생산 방식 소위 이노베이션 혁신 이게 중요한데 그런 혁신은 기업가가 일으키는 거고 따라서 기업가 정신이 중요하다. 그러면 기업가 정신은 어떻게 발휘될 수 있느냐? 전통 접근법, 경제학적 접근법으로 생각하면은 뭐 기껏해야 기술 개발, R&D 그런 쪽에 이제 치중한 이야기를 하겠죠. 근데 이제 그것도 옳지 않다. R&D라는 것은 많은 R&D를 투자를 하게 되면은 발명은 늘어날 수 있겠지만은 그러한 발명을 슈페트가 이야기한 그 혁신으로 바꾸는 그런 기능은 기업가가 할 수밖에 없다. 그래서 기업가 정신이 중요하다. 이 기업가 정신을 그럼 발휘하기 위해서는 어떻게 해야 되느냐? 아까 이야기했듯이 투입물을 늘린다든지 R&D를 한다든지 이래가지고는 안 된다. 그래가지고는 안 되고, 기업가가 혁신을 할 수 있는 그런 환경 조성이 중요하다. environment, 환경이 중요한데 그 환경이라는 건 뭐냐? 제도다라는 거죠, 제도. 그래서 제도는 아까 하나하나 설명을 하셨는데 법의 지배, 재산권의 보장, 맨 마지막에 이제 건전한 화폐 등등 해가지고 이런 제도를 잘 갖춰놔 놓으면은 기업가들이 R&D 하지 마라 해도 해가지고 발명도 일으키고 그런 발명을 또 돈 나는 곳에다가 이윤이 있는 곳에다 적용을 해가지고 돈도 벌기도 하고 기업가 정신이 저절로 일어난다. 그런 이야기를 하고 있습니다. 여기 홀공 교수님이 강의는 안 하셨지만 또 책에 있는 거 이제 정치적 기업가 정신이라는 그런 표현이 있는데 이제 이렇게 제도적인 그 환경이 제대로 잘 안 갖춰져 있으면은 이제 기업가들이 잠재적인 기업가들이 정말 시장에서 기업가 정신을 발휘하려고 하는 생각보다는 정치에 뛰어들어서 정치에 진입해서 혹은 정치가들로부터 특혜를 얻어서 이제 돈을 벌려는 그런 생각을 하게 될 거다라는 거죠. 많은 사람들이 이제 이런 정치적 기업가 정신을 발휘할 텐데 이 정치적 기업가 정신은 기업가 정신이지만은 나쁜 겁니다. 그런 일이 일어나지 않도록 작은 정부라든지 큰 시장을 이제 우리가 신경 써서 제도를 마련해야 된다. 그런 이야기를 하고 계세요. 그래서 제가 책을 번역하고 있으니까 나중에 나오거든 읽어보십시오. 그냥 제가 핵심이라고 생각하는 걸 간단하게 말씀을 드렸습니다. 감사합니다.
근데 우리가 지금 여기 있는 그룹들은 저희들이 이제 이 사회경제에서 몇 차례 이 이슈를 얘기했는데요. 이런 기업가 정신, 좀 더 크게 넓게 보면 인스티튜셔널 제도, 이것이 중요하다 하는 것을 지난달에도 하고 계속 하고 있고 다 동의를 하는 것입니다. 하는데 이런 이야기가 먹히질 않아요. 먹히질 않는 가장 큰 이유가 일반 국민들이 이런 프레임에 대해서 무식해서 그런 것이 아니고 우리의 적은 주류 경제학을 한 전문가들이 우리의 적이에요. 그러니까 주류 경제학자들은 이 개념이 없어요. 엔터프리너십이라는 개념도 없고 에코노믹 프로그레스라는 말도 개념이 없다고. 자, 그런 게 없다 보니까 우리 한국말로 이렇게 번역한 거 봐도 우리는 경제 발전, 경제 성장 이런 정도만 이야기하고 있지 에코노믹 프로그레스, 경제 진보 이렇게 하면 듣는 사람만이 전부 이상하게 생각할 거예요. 경제 진보 좀 이런 경제 번영 이상이 잘 안 들어온다고요. 그래서 이게 어쩌면 더 딜레마나 볼 수 있는데요. 우리가 제도를 잘 택해야 된다, 디자인해야 된다 하는 이런 이슈를 하면 조금 먹힐지 모르겠지만 제도라는 게 너무 too abstract. 너무 추상적이에요. 그 제도 중에 좋은 것이 하나가 이제 entrepreneurship이라는 이 요소를 우리가 좀 높여야 된다는데, 이 entrepreneurship이라는 이것도 이제 주류 경제에 타치하지 않는 건데, 우리가 더 번역을 기업가 정신 이렇게 해버린다고요. 저는 이 기업가 정신의 이 번역하는 이 순간부터 우리가 또 벌써 졌다고 생각합니다. 왜? 한국에서 기업가는 나쁜 놈들이거든요. 그래서 기업가가 가진 정신은 이게 좋은 게 아니에요. 그래서 저는 이것을 용어부터가 이런 기업 도전 정신이라든지 이런 거를 이제 바꿔야 된다고 생각하는데, 기업가 정신이 이렇게 번역하게 되면은 기업가한테 해당된다고 생각하거든요. 그런데 이제 아까 우리 황 교수님께서 얘기했듯이 entrepreneurship 안에 우리 홀금 교수 안에 책 보면 political entrepreneurship이라는 용어가 있다고요. 이게 사실 보면은 우리 한글로 번역하면은 이게 굉장히 이상한 용어예요. entrepreneurship 기업가 정신인데 앞에 political이라는 말이 있기 때문에 이게 이제 politician들한테 국회의원들한테 주는 메시지거든요. 그러니까 entrepreneurship이라는 것이 기업가만 만드는 것이 아니고 politician들도 대한민국의 앞날을 위해서 새롭게 뭔가 하는 정책을 만들어내는 이런 게 돼야 되는데, 그런 거 이제 우리가 이 전달하는 데 있어서 한계점이 있다는 그런 부분을 제가 강조하고 싶은데요. 아무튼 뭐 어떻게 되는지 간에 우리는 뭐 계속 이런 이야기 떠들어야 됩니다. 정치인들은 특히 지난번에 뭐 한국의 성장, 경제 성장 이야기가 나오고 난 뒤에 이상한 정책이 많이 나와요. 야당 같은 경우에 소득을 정대시키면 성장할 수 있다 해서 소득 기반 성장론 이렇게 해가지고, 특히 이제 저소득층의 소득을 높여주면은 대한민국이 발전한다 이렇게 해가지고 야당에서 그런 이상한 정책 방향을 이야기했는데, 여당에서는 아무도 거기에 대해서 반박하는 이야기도 안 하고 그렇지 않다 이렇게 나가야 된다 하는 아무 이야기도 없어요. 그러니까 우리나라에서 보면 지금 정치권에서 이야기하는 것은 대한민국 성장을 하려면은 저소득층에 대한 소득만 높여주면 된다 이런 이야기가 어찌 보면은 사회적인 이 담론이 되고 있는 거예요. 누구든지 정치인들이 엔터프리너십 기업가 정신을, 경제 도전 정신을 이야기하지 않거든요. 그런데 이제 우리가 이런 제도 경제를 포함해가지고 이런 전문가들은 항상 이 엔터프리너십 기업 경제 도전 정신하고 제도 이런 문제를, 사실 그 제도라고 얘기하면은 이런 뭐 이 정책도 정책이지만은 그 정책에서 타치하는, 정부가 타치하는 일종의 팔리시 컬처, 문화까지 다 포함한 이야기거든요. 그렇게 봤을 때 우리나라의 반기업 정서 이런 거 보면은 우리의 이런 이 컬처 자체가 굉장히 이 낙후한 거예요. 어쩌면 이제 그런 걸 좀 이제 바꾸기 위해서 자유경제원에서 하는 주된 어떻게 보면은 미션이 그런 거일지 모르는데, 하여튼 이제 큰 프레임 자체는 우리가 빨리 이야기를 해야 된다고요. 그래서 계속 국민들이 생각하는 그 프레임을 바꿔줘야 된다고요. 그런 의미에서 오늘 우리가 홀금 교수님을 모셨고, 이 렉처 또 이 강의가 끝나고 난 뒤에 저희들이 또 이렇게 한 이유가 꼭 이런 이야기를 저 동영상에 남겨야 된다고 해가지고, 우리는 동영상 시스템이 업데이트 돼가지고 내일부터는 바로 우리 이야기한 것이 바로 우리 이 홈페이지에 로드가 됩니다. 그래서 이런 나름대로의 이 전통 주류 영작에서 가지고 있는 펜을 떼고 이 한정된 이런 사고로는 이 사회비꾼들이 나타날 수밖에 없어요. 특히 정치인들 가지고. 그래서 이런 이야기를 계속 하면서 우리 홀금 교수뿐만 아니고 이런 쪽으로는 주장하는 분들이 많지는 않지만 종종 있어요. 그런 분들 통해서 이야기하고, 또 여기 계시 오신 우리 교수님들 다 동의하고 있는 그런 방향이기 때문에 끊임없이 이렇게 이야기하다 보면 제가 볼 때는 한 10년쯤 지나면은 조금 각성될 수 있을 것 같아요. 10년 정도 더 이야기하도록 합시다. 자, 여기까지 오늘 홀금 교수 렉처 강의를 통해서 저희들이 받는 레슨이 되겠습니다. 그리고 아까 말씀드렸듯이 홀금 교수하고 개인적으로 또 이야기하고 싶은 몇 분은 바로 밑에 지하 1층에 가서 우리가 된장국 먹으면서 또 추가적인 이야기 하도록 하죠. 자, 그럼 이것으로 자유경제원 해외 석학 이번에는 플로리다 스테이트 유니버시티의 랜더 홀콩 교수를 모시고 좋은 강의 들었습니다. 이것으로 마치도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.